the CEO who cooked GE's books and was never held accountable. In 2015, General Electric's top leadership made a quiet decision to keep booking a massive insurance shortfall as if it barely existed. And when the truth finally broke, it erased roughly $75 billion in shareholder value in a single trading day. The man in charge never spent a day in a courtroom. So why has almost no one heard this story? Stay with me, because the number at the center of it is bigger than you think, and it's not the part they were most afraid of getting out. For most of the 20th century, General Electric was the gold standard of American business. It built jet engines, MRI machines, power plants, refrigerators. Jack Welch turned it into Wall Street's favorite stock, a company so trusted that GE on a balance sheet meant safety. When Jeff Immelt took over in 2001, he inherited that reputation, a fortress company, dependable, boring in the best way. Investors didn't just buy GE stock, they parked their retirements in it. But inside GE Capital, the company's sprawling finance arm, there was a business almost nobody outside the company understood: long-term care insurance. Decades earlier, GE had sold policies promising to cover nursing home and in-home care for policyholders who were now aging into their 80s and 90s. The actuarial math from the 1980s and 90s had been wrong, badly wrong. People were living longer and needing more expensive care than anyone had priced for. By the mid-2010s, GE's own internal reviews showed the reserve set aside to pay those future claims was falling further behind every single quarter. Executives had the numbers. They saw the gap widening. And under Immelt, the company chose to keep topping up reserves gradually, in small increments, instead of admitting the real size of the hole all at once. That's the crack. But the part they really didn't want out wasn't just that the number was wrong, it's how long they'd known and kept moving it. Internal actuaries had flagged the shortfall years before it became public. Reports were narrowed, softened, and rescheduled for future disclosure instead of immediate correction. Meanwhile, GE kept paying dividends and touting steady earnings, the same story Wall Street had believed for decades. Analysts who asked pointed questions about GE Capital's reserves were waved off with reassurances that the business was de-risking. Rating agencies kept their grades intact. The cover held until it couldn't. In January 2018, GE finally disclosed it needed to add $15 billion to its insurance reserves, a number that quickly grew as regulators dug in. Then in 2019, forensic accountant Harry Markopolos, the same man who spent years warning regulators about Bernie Madoff before anyone would listen, published a report accusing GE of concealing a $38 billion accounting fraud, calling it, in his words, bigger than Enron and WorldCom combined. GE stock, which had traded above $30 a share under Immelt, collapsed towards single digits. Pension funds, retirees, and employees who'd held GE stock inside their 401(k)s for decades watched their savings evaporate. The SEC eventually launched a formal investigation into how GE accounted for both the insurance reserves and a separate practice of front-loading profits from its locomotive division through sale arrangements that made earnings look stronger than they were. Here's the twist almost nobody clocks. Immelt didn't stay to face the fallout. He retired in 2017, right as the cracks were widening, walking away with a retirement package worth over $200 million, including pension and stock, while the employees whose savings were tied up in GE stock absorbed the loss. In 2020, the SEC settled with GE for $200 million, a fine the size of a rounding error for a company that size. And GE, as is standard in these settlements, admitted no wrongdoing. No executive, including Immelt, was personally charged, fined, or barred from serving as an officer of a public company again. That's how it always seems to go. Corporate accounting fraud gets punished as a corporate problem, not a personal one. The company writes a check, shareholders and employees eat the real loss, and the individuals who signed off on the numbers move on with their reputations and their money intact. Regulators call it deterrence. Critics call it the cost of doing business. Remember that $75 billion wiped out in a single disclosure. None of it ever came back to the people who actually lost it. Immelt still sits on corporate boards today. The SEC's enforcement rules that let this happen haven't changed. So the next time a household name company tells you its numbers are solid, ask yourself, who actually checked, and what happens to them if they're wrong?